Let's rank every equipment from the best to the worst, covering everything that's changed with all of the new equipment, updates, and balance changes released. So why don't we start off with the Barbarian King, where this is how his equipment ranks from the best to the worst. His best choice in the S tier has to be his spiky ball. This is by far the most flexible equipment the Barbarian King has, and despite the nerf to the earthquake boots, it's still one of his best options. This is in part due to working well with all of the other equipment the Barbarian King has, with the exception to the Barbarian puppets. Its instant damage allows it to always get value no matter if it's for funneling or getting defenses inside the base. Down in the A tier, we have the Giant Gauntlet and Earthquake Boots. Both of these are very solid options for different strategies. The Gauntlet has the benefit of tanking and splash damage, which lets it pair very well with the Rage Vial to boost his damage for a short time, which is great for funneling and hero dives, but can also work well with the Spiky Ball for instant damage or the Earthquake Boots. Speaking of which, the Earthquake Boots can still be used quite well. The decent instant damage on buildings makes this option pair well with the Spiky Ball if both of them are maxed out, and can also work with the Gauntlet if you need a way to open the base up and tank at the same time. Now within the B tier, we have the Rage Vial. Now this equipment is still quite average, but can work quite well due to the high DPS increase percent, which pairs very well with the Giant Gauntlet to boost the King's damage and movement speed. The other three options the Barbarian King has, which is the Snake Bracelet, Vamp Stash, and Barbarian Puppets, are either very lackluster when not used in hard mode, gets outclassed by other equipment, or is just straight up bad. So what are the best combos for the Barbarian King? Well, one option that is somewhat decent is the Spiky Ball and Snake Bracelet combo. While the Snake Bracelet is very mid, it can work within Root Rider armies, where the spawning of snakes and the King's absurdly high HP will benefit the attack in addition to the instant damage from the Spiky Ball. However, the Giant Gauntlet and Rage Vial combo does make the Snake Bracelet combo useless, as it does the same job, but it's just much more flexible, as the Gauntlet's tanking and splash damage works very well with the Rage Vial's buff. However, the King's best choice is often with the Spiky Ball and either the Gauntlet or Earthquake Boots, both of which work extremely well and often will be flexible anytime the King needs to support the army while either tanking or opening walls and doing a lot of damage. Next, let's move over to the Archer Queen, where this is how her equipment ranks from best to worst. Now for her, the best options have to be her Magic Mirror, Giant Arrow, and the new action figure. All three of these equipment offer unrivaled power to the Archer Queen, as they are either incredibly flexible or just very, very strong. The Giant Arrow is a new arrival to the S tier, and for good reason, as it can be used to funnel alongside the healer puppets in addition to activating invis towers or even removing spell towers with 2 earthquake spells. However, both the Magic Mirror and action figure are unmatched on the ground side of attacks. They offer so much DPS and survivability that it becomes a super strong combo. Having 3 queens at a moment's notice, and even a unit that has 18,500 HP at max level, is just so good for the Archer Queen. However, the healer puppets aren't bad, as they remain in the A tier. Despite not being the best in every army, it's still a very good option, and thanks to it being a common equipment, it can be very consistent. The survivability the Archer Queen can get with it is very good, especially when paired with the Giant Arrow or Magic Mirror, which are still super good options for this equipment. Outside of those options, the Frozen Arrow, Archer Puppets, and Invisibility Vial are within the C tier due to them mainly enabling Queen charges to work well, which are not as strong as they used to be currently and are relegated to being a niche choice. So, what are the Queen's best builds? Well, one such option is the Healer Puppet and Giant Arrow combo. This is just really solid all the way around, as it can work in nearly every army, both air and ground, and is great for funneling, activating invisibility spell towers, clearing air defenses and sweepers, and even more. Overall, you really can't go wrong with this setup. However, another very strong combo is the Magic Mirror and Healer Puppets. This is just very strong for most ground armies, as it enables the Queen to be a solid funneling support unit, with the Healer Puppets offering survivability to the Queen, or even being used inside the base to refresh healers and provide higher DPS. Just be aware that the healers could die at any point. However, her best currently is the new action figure with either the Magic Mirror or Giant Arrow. It goes without saying that the Giant is just too good with the Queen, and while it doesn't pair well with her in air spam armies, this makes all ground armies really powerful. Even if you see Invis towers, using the Giant Arrow instead of the Mirror allows you to cover that while spawning a beefy tank. Next up is the Minion Prince, and here is how his equipment ranks from best to worst. Now, his best option has to be the Dark Orb. This is mainly due to the slow that it offers to your attacks, and while it only goes up to 50%, it's crazy powerful due to how large the area of effect is. Additionally, this equipment offers a small hit of damage, and since it's a projectile, it can activate invisibility spell towers. So this pairs extremely well with other equipment like the Henchman Puppets, which can cover his other weaknesses. Speaking of which, the Henchman Puppets are within the A tier. While this equipment is fairly average, there are reasons to choose it, as it can cover the Prince's weaknesses to Seeking Air Mines and can even hide him for a second, which forces defenses to retarget. Additionally, its hero boost stats allow him to do even greater damage, which is great for a supportive Prince build. Overall, it pairs well with the Dark Orb, as it gives him survivability and damage all in one combo. However, his Noble Iron and Metal Pants are just niche choices due to them being below average when paired with the Dark Orb, and when paired with each other, it usually is niche to Town Hall 16 and Town Hall 17 thanks to the Angry Jelly. So oftentimes, these two aren't really that worth considering. So what are the Minion Prince's best builds? Well, with his Metal Pants and Noble Iron, you can use this in a Prince Warden charge or using the Prince to funnel, but mostly at Town Hall 16 and Town Hall 17 thanks to the Angry Jelly, so it mainly is quite niche. However, another decent combo for him is the Metal Pants and Dark Orb, as it gives him a ton of survivability to work with while surviving an additional Seeking Air Mine. You just sacrifice a lot of DPS in the process. However, his best combo has to be his defaults, as they are just too flexible and too good for him to give up, especially since you tend to use the Minion Prince as a support for air armies. Now it's time for the Grand Warden, as this is how his equipment ranks from best to worst. His best options haven't changed, as the Eternal Tome and Fireball remain in the S tier. These two are just too good for the Warden, as one can be used to support your main push, while the other allows your Warden to be a DPS unit. These often pair with other equipment like the Rage Vial, as it provides a passive boost, which can work great in either making the Warden a better support or better DPS. They can also work together only if you're using the Warden with an early Blimp army like the Super Archer Blimp. Despite this, his other common equipment, the Healing Tome and Rage Gem, remain in the A tier. These are just extremely flexible and worth using due to them either being able to increase DPS or survivability for any unit. These are even better when paired with the healers, as you have the option to keep them healed and protected, or increasing their healing output thanks to the Rage buff. These just pair so well with the Eternal Tome due to how strong their abilities are in supporting and enabling your troops to do massive damage. However, the Life Gem resides within the B tier. Thanks to the buffs it's received over time, it's gotten better, and while it's slightly more niche to troops that have lower HP, it can work insanely well due to the HP buff being massive for these units like Balloons, Miners, and even Super Hog Riders. It's very good to pair with the Eternal Tome due to the protection it can offer to your attacks while adding a notable buff to your troops. This does lead us to the Warden's worst option, which is the Lavaloon Puppet, as it just doesn't work with any army or any Warden equipment, which makes it pretty lackluster compared to other equipment. So, what are the Grand Warden's best builds? Well, easily, the Eternal Tome and Life Gem combo is really solid due to the protection the Eternal Tome offers while having a huge HP buff for troops like Super Hog Riders or Balloons, which will actually stay up for a lot longer. You additionally have the Fireball with the Rage Gem, as it's an extremely strong option despite being niche to a few attacks, mainly due to how strong the Fireball is since it's not super base dependent. However, his best option is the Eternal Tome with either the Healing Tome or the Rage Gem. Oftentimes, Support Warden will use this to either further boost DPS and healing, or just keep your troops and heroes alive for a lot longer, which really makes this combo extremely flexible and super useful for most armies. And finally, we reach the Royal Champion, where this is how her equipment ranks from best to worst. Her best options within the S tier haven't changed, as the Electro Boots, Haste Vial, and Rocket Spear are still very good. This is in part to how flexible they are. With the Electro Boots being the best for literally any army, you have the flexibility to use the Rocket Spear early on or later to snipe defenses from a distance, or even the Haste Vial to speed up your Royal Champion while doing a ton of damage in the process. Both worked exponentially well in Royal Champion charges, which are a staple to the Royal Champion as of now. However, her Hog Puppets are still worth using as they remain within the A tier. It's still a very strong equipment thanks to the 1 second invisibility, and with the Hog Rider spawns, it works amazingly well anytime your Royal Champion is providing support with defensive targeting units like Root Riders, or even using this on the back end to support her as she moves from defense to defense. The Seeking Shield, though, is going to be staying within the B tier. This is all in part to it just being an average equipment option for most strategies, but it can work well if you're using the Rocket Spear with it, which is thanks to its ability to clear lesser defenses and allows the Rocket Spear to use less spears to remove higher HP defenses. Though the Royal Gem remains her worst option in the F tier due to being completely outclassed by better options, especially when the Electro Boots allows you to have survivability and damage all the time rather than with the press of a button. So with her, what are the best combos for the Royal Champion? Well, not much has changed, as the Rocket Spear Seeking Shield combo can often work quite well thanks to allowing the Royal Champion to support your troops on the back end and from a distance at that. However, you can also use the Electro Boots and Rocket Spear, which is a solid option as a Royal Champion charge starter, or you do not have access to the Haste Vial yet. Her best option, though, is often the Electro Boots with the Haste Vial or Hog Puppets, as these two common equipment just pair very well with the Electro Boots, regardless if you're using the Royal Champion to charge and clear value or support your main push as they move from defense to defense. So here is each hero's tier list, where it gives you their best and worst options to use. However, if you want a list on the minimum levels for every equipment, check this video out right here.